Good morning. We'll call the Monday, April 14th, Rome Town Center Subcommittee meeting to order. Roll call start over here, please.
Diana Dilge, Plan Commission.
Heather Dalton, CDA.
Bill Capel, Plan Commission.
Lori Giamatti, Plan Commission, CDA, and last day is Chair. Alrighty then.
Wait, don't forget.
Oh, Tiff, you got to say you're here.
Tiffany Becky, CDA.
Perfect, thank you. All right, and then I'll certify the posting of the meeting. Taylor did this for us, certifying on April 11th, the agenda for the Town of Rome RTC Subcommittee meeting for Monday, April 14th was posted at the following locations: Rome Town Hall at 3:56 p.m., Quick Trip LLC at 4:10, Inclusive Port Edward State Bank at 4:15, posted on the Town of Rome website on 4/11, and emailed to the Rapids Tribune on 4/11. All right, there's no one in the audience today.
We have to approve the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Motion to approve agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Dalton, second by Dilge to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Tiff, you said yes, right? If she can hear us.
Oh,
Okay.
I
muted.
can't hear you. You're muted.
Oh,
Aye.
thank you. All right, and there's no one here, so there's no need to read 5 or 5A, so no comments. All right, discussion and possible action on the following. Approve the minutes, April 7th. We did look for those. All we have is an affidavit of posting. So there's really nothing that we can approve in Lexi's absence. We're not quite certain. So on April 8th, though, the subcommittee meetings, you have those here, and
I'll move we accept the April 8th minutes as written.
Second.
okay, so we have a motion by Capel, second by Dilge to approve the April 8th RTC subcommittee meeting minutes for going the March 7th till we can discover them somewhere, hopefully, but we haven't to date. So, and just so everyone knows, Taylor did look through everything. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I heard her, yep. Motion carries. All right, debriefing of April 10th, event outcomes and takeaways. Patrick, you're up.
I'm up?
Yes,
Okay.
you are.
Well,
Good to see you.
good to see everybody too, or hear everybody, I guess.
You can't see us?
Yeah, so first, I just want to say, I've done a lot of community events before, and that one was packed, the whole room, which doesn't happen often, so that's a big kudos to all of you for promoting the event and making that happen. So that doesn't happen all the time, so I really appreciate all the lengths you went to make that happen. It's really nice to have a team that is pushing so hard to make things like that happen, so I appreciate that.
It was it's our pleasure. We only hope the momentum keeps going forward. So we thank you
Yeah.
too, because it was amazing, and even the brewery said they did well that night. So we know we had a really good turnout. So, and we had a good morning session too. So
Yeah, and our first meeting I think went well too, and it's, yeah, always happy to help a local brewery make some more money too. So my takeaways, haven't had a lot of time to digest, but I know this is kind of off the cuff. Initial takeaways, the first one was more positivity than negativity, actually. This is a ballpark measure, but I would say 4 out of every 5 comments were positive. And for those that weren't positive, they were weary of either the number of units and the density of what was being proposed. The other half of that was infrastructure concerns about how the lack of infrastructure could, and by that I mean sanitary sewer, could affect the long-term growth of this. There was some concern about how this might affect the lakes. I heard that a little bit from a couple of people, but again, I would say that these two things, the town can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can develop these two things at this. They're not in conflict. It's not one or the other. But I think those were kind of the big of the negativity that was heard was about the lakes, infrastructure concerns over the future, and just about density. But again, I would say most of those negative comments, they didn't want to see anything happen in the town center whatsoever. So I think if you would have shown 4 buildings over the 250 acres, I think that would have been too many. I think that's an important thing to remember. There's nothing you can really do to convince someone in that scenario. So.
Can I just interact there a minute with you? I'm sorry that I interrupted. I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said? Yeah.
Oh, just that, I think, this is just something you recognize, I'm sure Bill and Diana are thinking the same thing about, there are people that didn't want to see even one building built in the
Yeah.
town center. And that's just kind of the part of the game.
No change.
No change at all,
There's
and
a
it's
no
just
change
about the
to it.
water, and it's like, I don't understand how it's difficult for people to understand phase in. It's just like an all or nothing, just like with other things that are gonna take place in the coming months. It's like, this is a growth over 10, 20, 25 years, and if you have one small development on it's no different than a lodge or a clubhouse, you have a larger system that can handle it as it grows eventually down the line. Sure, but that may never happen, but that doesn't mean you don't have a vision and you don't work on something, because change is inevitable.
Yep.
And younger people are coming here, whether they like it or not, and they gotta stop being selfish and think beyond themselves.
So Patrick, this is Diana. You can't see us yet, or you
Yeah,
can?
No.
oh, I thought
Our,
you
our
could.
camera's off. When I went to turn it on,
Oh.
we're sideways. So.
Oh, sorry, Patrick.
That's right.
I did briefly see, I saw
Yeah.
somebody sideways for a half a second.
Yeah.
So, just so I get this right and understand, when you say the lakes, the people are concerned that revenues will be taken away from the lakes projects and put into the Rome Town Center, and that's their concern. Okay,
The
That
revenues?
the revenues.
That's what I read into it.
The revenues from what? What revenues?
Well,
Tax-
whatever tax
taxpayer
money,
money, tax
taxpayer
money.
money is gonna
Yeah.
go to the lakes and promoting the lakes and taking care of things with the lakes. And that'll take away from the revenues needed
Because they-
by the town to promote and get the Rome Town Center
They
activated
don't
and going.
understand how.
They
to
don't,
proceed.
right, they don't
They
understand.
don't understand. They don't have,
Right.
you're right. You're
But that would
absolutely
be
right. They're-
something that would have to be brought
Explain.
forward and explained so that people can understand, just
Absolutely.
where the monies are gonna come from and that it will not impact other aspects that are going on in the town. And like Patrick said, you can walk and chew gum at the same time, except for some men I know, but we won't go there.
But the thing is that when you say that, they already know what some of those vehicles are to do this, and they choose to ignore them, or they want the money for something else. And that's unfortunate too, because it can be a shared pot, and the town needs to invest in itself, because we own that land, and it costs us money to keep that thing operational as it is. But you get developers in here, I just don't know how to get them past some of those conversations, and it's not gonna be my worry anymore. But I hope the message can get out there and be positive. You live on the lake,
Well, I
that
think
can be
it's just
taken care of.
educating everyone.
If they listen, if they're willing to
The
listen.
problem that I foresee, Patrick, is how long has Sand Valley been here?
2015,
Since 2014.
2015.
11
Well,
years.
they started building it.
Trying to explain
They
started
it
in
in a tip
2016.
to the population over all
Yeah.
those years at all of our meetings has been virtually impossible. So I think we might need to hire some kind of a public relations firm that can actually explain it to everyone so that they really understand where the taxes are gonna come from. Because obviously, we're not doing a good job of it. We have yet to convince them about the
Yep.
valuation and the TID and the TIF and everything else, so.
And we've
And this
attempted
is something
that.
that the Rome Town Center is going to probably have to do to get this project forward, and that's why I really would highly recommend that, we
The
the
Andy
board to,
from, we heard that down in Adams County that day. He'll come up here for free and explain it again. It's the willingness to hear it and understand it.
That's what I
I keep
think it
going
is more
back
than
there is the
anything.
willingness
Right.
to hear
Yeah.
it and the willingness to understand it, because there's tools available to us. Let's use them. They're still stuck at that place that it's not being paid. Never mind. The education piece is very, very
I think
critical,
it's
but they have to
critical,
hear it and
yes.
be willing to comprehend it.
but the more people that hear it that aren't aware, not unwilling, but aren't aware of how all of this interplay is, I think is critical. And the more that we can educate those people, and like you say, we're never gonna convince some people, they're just, no, nothing, zero, I don't want anything. But I think it's that center group that we need to really start to focus on and convince that this is gonna be a good deal.
Because there's people that don't live on the water, and yes, sure, they might use them and care about that, but you have to think about the entire town and their needs and wants and how it's growing. And the only way to grow is to have smart growth. If you let it happen randomly, that's how you end up with what we've currently got there. And he's done a really, really good job, and he accentuated on that the other day. You're melding the two together, so it's like, yeah, that building right now might be a whatever, but eventually it'll look like it belongs as part of the community, because like any other neighborhood, it grows and things are added and they all blend together, modern with old. I mean, just look at some of the cities around the world, or Milwaukee, or wherever it is you go back. All of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, that fits in really cool. But so we needed to really kind of flesh that out, because I know we're all like, feeling that we understand you can educate to a point, and you got to keep trying with the positive messaging, and you just hope people are willing to.
And education.
Yeah.
I still think.
Education.
Exactly. We have to educate our taxpayers and let them
Yes.
try to comprehend that we're not taking away from any other aspect of the town of Rome.
There are, on that note, Diana, and it's not something Pardo does, we touched on the edges of it, obviously, just as part of being in city planning, but there are firms that specialize exactly in public relations, but also mixed with, that can really break down plans and other things like that, and put it in terms of tax revenue and tax impact and revenue from the town and how those two things come together. And there are firms out there that can do that on a more granular level, that's all they do. So it may not be a bad idea to help educate people through
Like
that kind of
Erica
lens.
and Findorf. Yeah. You're right, they can communicate because they're used to that, So, and they know how to get across to people that have just kind of got this roadblock that this ain't gonna work and I don't want it, and
Yeah.
without seeing the.
They can go through the numbers, and they run the numbers in the Excel, and they can break it down into something that people can look on a piece of paper and understand and then present it. So
One of the folks that I was taking on a tour around, they didn't understand that we're not paying to develop for that. And I explained to her the different tools that can be used, or how it happens, or a developer comes in with just one section and you put the RFP out for that housing, all the rest of that comes with it, but that doesn't mean the town's paying for all of that.
And that's the critical part.
Yes.
Right there is educating people on that aspect of this entire development, because that's either gonna make or break it.
Yes.
But you have to educate how this is going
And
to
she didn't
happen.
realize that till I told it to her,
Right,
and-
because they just don't understand, they don't
And you
understand,
try
but
to
they're not unwilling.
some are, but some aren't. It's those ones that haven't heard the message yet.
There were several people there that have been unwilling, that I was very happy to see, because I believe that after they saw what the vision was,
Yes.
they were still a little concerned about the density and the number of people, but if you tried to, it's a 25-year plan, and once they understood that, then they were more amenable to listening.
Yes.
And I think that's the most critical thing right now.
And it is 25, it's not gonna all happen tomorrow. It's gonna come in phases.
Right. What,
I'm concerned the back section will get sold off and they'll put, whatever, but that'll be the next step, and we'll get there eventually, but later on in the agenda, but. Yeah, because there are some people that are willing to listen, and when those draft renderings were very helpful, and so once we you get all of the final input together and get us final drawings, we can get those out there and people can talk about them.
Yeah, yep.
Lori, is on your agenda, I'm sorry, I didn't glance at it, but is there, are we also gonna discuss the next steps around that?
Yep, exactly. So we should probably keep going with your takeaways then. So what were your other takeaways?
Those were honestly, those were most of my takeaways. trying to think of other things. I think with the incoming town board, that'll be a challenge. But I do think Lido, I think that's his name, right? Lido?
Who?
Lido?
Vito.
Vito. I thought his name was Lido the whole night. It was a very loud room. That makes more sense. Yeah, Vito, he did seem to come around the idea that we should be proactive and not reactive. He kept using that line, and we seem to agree that, he said, I understand this isn't tomorrow. He did kind of come around to, okay, this is 25 years down the road, and this is not gonna happen in the next 5 years. But he was concerned about infrastructure growth and how that related to what was being built. Then I explained the RFP process a little bit and how it would be built out by the developer, and the town could release the density they wanted. They could release the number of units they wanted, and they would have more control over that aspect of development as it moves forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I said it's really important to maybe move forward with the code, because you don't want the code to come after developers are knocking on the door, which they already are beginning to. So I think there was some daylight there broached, which was helpful. But I mean, overall, I think we all know the challenge there moving forward.
What was you guys, or Bill, you had a question too, but that would probably come out of the morning session. Or maybe it was the evening session, something about how it was with, well, Plato, I introduced you to Russ Plato, if you had a chance to take him around.
I wasn't here, so.
Oh,
When Plato, did Plato come to the afternoon
no,
session?
he came in
just
the
came over to the
evening
open house.
and walked through.
Okay.
But how that compared to like who?
Well, the other one was the one from Quidditch who embraced it 100%.
Yeah,
But I didn't see Plato or hear any reaction.
that was in the evening, yeah, he came in the evening and he
Did-
walked through
did-
with.
Oh, I don't
What
even know
was,
who he is.
what was Plato's
I didn't know his
reaction?
name.
Because he's a developer.
Well, yeah, I wasn't sure what his reaction was going to be, but his reaction was kind of neutral. He said, yeah, I mean, he's most concerned about his current units today.
How does it affect
how
his
they relate
workers?
to
Yeah,
the recreation
and his
courses,
renters,
decibel
right.
issue.
I figured that.
Yeah, I know you all know about that. That was his laser focus. And the rest of the plan, he's like, yeah, you know, that's fine. He kind of was neutral on it, so he was very laser focused on.
No interest in being a developer for that.
Yeah.
What was your takeaway then from the morning session with everyone? The key takeaways you had there?
Well, but the first meeting we had, the first business stakeholder meeting we had back in February, I was most concerned about Doug and Primar's reaction to all the development around, especially housing around the light industrial use. And he came up even after the open house in the evening and said how supportive he was of the plan, and he really loved the idea of having housing for people that would be working if they were to expand in the future, because they would like to expand. Having that housing nearby. So he was very appreciative, and way more supportive than I thought he was going to be in that very first meeting when he said, you know, we're concerned about, are you taking up our property? So that, he seemed to do either a 180 or just being
360.
conservative right off the bat.
But, and then a 180. Yeah, he was really, in the evening session, he was really all over it by the time he left that, and in fact, he got choked up in that about it, but just a side conversation we were having, and with Mr. Marks, the original owner of that building, and his wife still, you know, is still around with his daughter and the development going on. He says, you got me past that. I'm good. I get it, you know, and he was really into it by the end of the night. So,
Do you remember the gentleman that we were talking to that was a planner for one of the major developers? What did you get from, do you remember what his comments were? That was Mark.
Mark Lake.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
they
he
just
was-
moved here. They're really, yeah.
He flat out said, whatever we need to do to move this forward, let me know.
And I had actually interviewed him for the CDA, but with things going as quickly as they did, he would be a good one to recommend for CDA or Plan Commission with those openings. So I hope he does reapply. They do have his application here as well as, I'm gonna put a pitch in for
He
him.
said he
No, I
couldn't-
better not. You guys put a
I had
pitch
a
in for him.
conversation with him. He can't get on the plan commission because he has meetings on Tuesdays,
Tuesday and Wednesday in Milwaukee.
and he's not up here. So
That's why then,
He's
okay.
applying for the
He
CDA
wants
because he can be
CDA.
here on Thursday.
And
But he
you-
wants to be involved.
Yeah.
I think that would be, and he interviewed very, very well, and he actually knows Sam from Von Briesen,
Right.
from the town
He
of
works
Mount
with Sam.
Pleasant, because he had done developments and this sort of thing down there. So I think it would be really advantageous for you to push, and I don't have his app, but they have it here.
Okay.
You guys could easily get copies of his application and encourage this new board to seriously consider him.
Okay.
Because I think he would be very, very helpful. And the fact that he knows Sam, I mean, isn't it interesting how the people that we've gathered to help with this idea are already in the mix of people that understand it, you know, and Lexi was gonna move forward with that eventually, but whoever they get now in planning and zoning, but bottom line is, the resources are there, and there's a commonality, they know these things and they understand the future.
I told him we do have a zoning administrator job available too right now.
But he can't.
Well, she was giving him a pretty good time, but,
So what about the other ones from the morning? What else did you gather? What were your takeaways from the morning?
yeah, from the business owners, supportive with the exception, of Tom and how that might block his visibility, which we all know is not really.
He
an
has
issue.
no vision. There's nothing to block. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say it bluntly. It's about.
And then the big one is the bank owned parcel between the town square and Highway 13.
Yep.
I had another chance to talk with, was it Adam?
Yes. Yes,
With
Adam Miller.
and at the end of the night, or kind of near the end of it, and he was very appreciative, and he said that if Mary and Rob wanted a one-on-one conversation to talk about it more high level, and without, everybody else in the room, like all the other stakeholders, and just really go through it in more detail, they would be happy to. And he wanted to see it move forward, but he was trying to, I think, just be realistic about it. It's their decision, and they're committed to the community, but it's also, they have to look out for the interests of the banks. And he thought the land swap made sense, but it's just something that they need to study in more detail. So, which is what they should do, they have to look out for themselves too. So I thought that was positive.
Yeah, and he's one of several vice presidents there. He's newer to the bank. Newer in that he's the longevity in that way.
He's also on plan commission for the town of Saratoga.
Yes, he is.
Which is
He understands.
Right.
Positive,
Mhm.
yeah.
See, Patty, his mother-in-law, used to be on the town board in Saratoga. So, anyway, so there's understanding there too. So he knows, he sees where this is going and how it could impact the future. So that conversation later on with Mary and Rob, and even Adam, because they gave the land originally for the library. They donated that, his father did. So, they're willing to work with the town, and they want what's best for the town too, because he raised some of the kids here. So they would understand, and when you look at some of the corners that they could option in for, that one that you pointed out or whatever, that's not like you're giving them anything cheap at that point either, so right now he's got an empty parcel that we know
And just the vision though,
yeah.
if we could get that nailed down, and get that in concrete, so to speak, not like Jimmy Hoffa, but.
It seems like that would be, between the land swap is one of them, that's a big one, to get that interest, and then working with the DOT, that's another one.
Making sure that's gonna happen
But-
before you even work on the land swap.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if
Do
you're not
that
gonna have
one.
an entrance there,
It doesn't matter.
It's
if that-
different.
But now
It's-
might not be the
that's
time to
right.
have that conversation due to what's going on with the Link the Lakes, so.
That's true too.
It might be, you have to gauge that, because with the development of the lakes, they're jumping through hoops to get to work with the DOT. So you gotta take them, You gotta think about a plan. You have to really have a plan, because I think number 3 is, we really do need to get a housing RFP out there, but that would be next steps. That would be covered in next steps, but I think to get something going, those would be the 3. That's just my humble opinion for my penny's worth. But what about the other takeaways from the morning? Anybody here, what were your takeaways? We sat and listened.
I thought it was very positive.
Yeah.
I was very happy that everyone seems to be enthused about the plan and what was brought forward, so I thought it was good.
You were here.
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
I said that. I thought the morning session was really good. I thought that the people, while they voiced concerns, they were not negative concerns.
That's right.
They were more or less
That
obstacles.
was, they were keeping a positive vein
Right.
with one exception, and was a foregone conclusion.
Well, just, what you gonna do?
So I thought the morning session was excellent.
Yeah. All right, so then do you have anything for us, or what do you, what are the plans then for the renderings? Now, these all said on there, this is proprietary right now. The concern is that before we would share them or distribute them, granted, people took pictures of them. We can put them out and people can still take whatever, go positive, negative, go south, go north. Otherwise, do you want us to wait until you finish up with all the input that you've received? Are you updating anything on those renderings?
This is something I wanted to talk about with you all. I am thinking about potentially there was 3 views, right? I was thinking about in the view taken from eye level, not up high, not that up high one, looking to the bank's property. There were 2 3-story buildings on the right-hand side. I thought about maybe knocking one of those down to 2, just to soften that a little bit. And to show that after the meeting that we had, we did incorporate some feedback. I wouldn't change any one of the other ones. I wouldn't.
Okay.
I think the number of stories and density is something that can be explained in the report itself. And
That's the one he's talking about.
but I think that rendering, I've considered maybe knocking off the story of that just to soften that up a little bit.
So you're talking about the rendering that you have the 25-year vision and adjusting that a little bit.
It's looking in from Highway 13.
Looking in from, no, that's looking in
No,
from,
it's the
no.
one where
Is that
the
the one?
angle parking is very visible.
Oh,
in
this
the-
one. I'm
That's
sorry,
the one
this
he's
one.
talking
That's
about.
the one.
Oh, this one, the angled parking one, the town square?
Yep.
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, this is the one that was west.
Crystal clear here.
I'm just putting this in the notes, so, for the minutes.
If you all think that's a good idea, I mean, it would be this one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, that's the one okay.
Yeah.
So the town square
I-
pick would take down to 2 stories.
I would take this building, I would keep, I don't mind showing some 3, because it's already zoned that way, and I don't wanna give that up. But I think maybe showing this one as 2 stories might be helpful. It just,
With the
Soft
rooftop
and
bar.
we're not touching the rooftop bar, don't worry.
Yeah, that's technically not a 3rd story, it's outdoor
Oh,
space.
no, I thought you cut it
For
down to 2,
recreational
and you put a
sports.
rooftop bar on top of the 2nd story.
He's got it over there
I know,
down
but
there.
we'll move it over to this guy that he's cutting down.
I see, for less,
She wants
Yes,
she wants a
steps.
bigger.
It's not as far to
she wants
walk
a
or
bigger
drive.
rooftop bar is what she's saying.
Absolutely.
Less steps to get up
Yes.
there.
save the 10,000
Wow.
steps for up the stairs to get to the rooftop.
But we
bar.
did get a lot of feedback, and when you went to the pictures that everyone picked at the first focus group, everybody liked the 3 stories.
I know.
In fact, I was getting comments that, oh my gosh, that looks like the downtown that I
Yes.
grew up in. You know, the 3-story buildings, and then, but a lot of people did not like the 3 stories.
The only one that they seemed, what I got the feedback when I was walking through with people, it was on the 25-year plan. With the they were misconstrued.
With the buildings here, yeah.
Well, on that other one, but once you showed them that drawing we just looked at, they did not find that offensive.
This one,
No, this one here. This drawing here.
right.
That one there, that says the town square, people did not find that drawing offensive. When they saw this is when they got a little bit like, what are you,
Like
when they looked-
overwhelmed.
Yeah, they got overwhelmed with the 25-year vision drawing, Patrick, or rendering, versus the one where
Town
you
square.
show the town square with 3 stories, and then you explain that next picture where it's like, well, you could have a home or a storefront, or, they
That
did,
one,
That one.
that's the one.
that's the one that they seemed over,
That
it's like,
scared 'em.
where are all those people going, and where, you know, it's too high, you're gonna block the view, well, you can't see some of that stuff now anyway, but, you know, it's like, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one where they kinda shied away from, but once you got to the town square picture, and you got to the housing and the community neighborhood picture, that kinda just subsided.
Okay, well, then I'm gonna shift my game plan a little bit, and I would say, keep the other one as is, and then drop a story in 1 or 2 of these buildings, just to soften it a little bit.
Okay.
Are you okay with that? I mean, we can hold steady to our guns and keep it at 3, but maybe 1 or 2 buildings a little bit lower wouldn't be the worst idea.
Well, and you know, that's a very good point, and what I noticed too, that you don't necessarily notice when you first look at this drawing, is if you look at those buildings in the front that are 3 stories, you have smaller porch entries into these buildings. And that's why I think they eventually came to understand it, is because if you have a small storefront down there and the person's renting something up above, that's what we asked for. That's what people like. And eventually, when you got
But
down
he's
to
got
this drawing.
3-story buildings, not 2-story. My vision was, especially in the mixed use that's further away from the town square, which this is. These are further away, that it would be 2-story, where you would have the possibility of businesses on the lower, and then someone could rent above.
But then if you look at that one drawing that we had with the green on the front of the building, it was 2 stories up above. Now, it might be a loft apartment. Where's that one drawing, or the picture? Look at that, isn't that 2 stories, or is that 1? I don't remember.
This is 2.
Oh, it's 2, okay.
This one?
Yeah,
See,
like
that was
down, right
That's, and that's
here.
what she's saying.
That's
Yeah.
what my vision was.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah. Because that does have that. But even if that would be a loft apartment, and there's not apartments up there too, I mean, I wouldn't mind a high ceiling. But I'm just saying, there's other ways of the vision. So he's right by reducing it in some of these areas, so it's not so overwhelming.
I would say
Yeah.
more than 2, though. I would say maybe the end units could be 2-story that you've got there, and then go up to 3 stories. You know, but I don't know, I think it kind of took people back that it was 3 stories throughout that whole thing.
Yeah, I think this one is, yeah, just take a couple of buildings and then take them down a story, and that'll help a little bit. You know, don't drag them all down to 2 stories, just because I don't think that's either realistic. But, yeah, a few of them, without a doubt, would soften that.
And now when you say unrealistic, it's from a developer's aspect?
Yeah,
Cost
it's,
effectiveness? Okay.
yeah, this is where Mark and I were talking about this, and I just couldn't disagree more with this. If a developer is permitted to go to 3 stories, and they're gonna build a downstairs commercial space, they're gonna fire rate the ceiling and floor between the 2, and they're gonna build a staircase up to the 2nd floor. They're gonna if they have the money, they're gonna build a 3rd floor, because they paid for the land, they've already paid for the architect, they're gonna just build the floor plan one more time. They're stacking units and bathrooms. Like, per dollar, the cost of that unit is so much cheaper once you go to that 3rd floor. If you're gonna go 2 stories, you're almost always gonna go 3 stories.
That makes sense from a commercial
does.
development, sorry, because even when you built, if you've ever built the house we did, it's like they want the bathrooms all aligned. If you're gonna put one in the basement, then your laundry room with the bathroom's gotta be here, or your master bedroom, but pick one. You know, it's like they want all the plumbing in the same place, all the HVAC, so I understand that concept. I do see what Diana's saying about, especially like that one building there. It looks a little bit more stark than the other 3-story buildings, and I think it's just because of where it is. And it's just, again, an education thing.
Yes.
Talking
That's the
people,
one.
yeah, talking people through it so they understand, and showing the visual, because contrary to what some people say, I think those visual steps that we took with the pictures, and there's a methodology and a thought process behind it, that's how you ended up with, that's how we got that. You know, we did the same thing with the original port plan. They didn't want to do it this time, and they didn't do it this time, but I think it really affected the court plan all in all. You know, because visions and ideas change as the community changes. What do you think, Tiffany? You've been talking too much. Fill us in here. Your mic's off. There you go.
She hasn't talked.
Yeah, keep it off if I'm not talking because the dog keeps barking. It's just all the smells and sounds over here. No, I think maybe just that initial view for people, it's a little maybe overwhelming to have so many 3-story buildings. I think it would be a good idea to, drop some of those down or, just show up maybe a couple of smaller buildings peppered into there or something. So I definitely think that's a good idea, but I don't think we need to completely reinvent the wheel on it because this is really what came from people's thoughts during those initial walkthroughs and stuff.
And that doesn't mean that it's gonna be written in stone either, as the development is progressing and we've got the
Right.
3 stories and people aren't overwhelmed or intimidated because they're looking at the storefronts down, their eyes aren't elevated up. Who knows, they may become more amenable to having this type of a development in there.
If they start to
Especially with a 25-year plan.
If they start to understand that to get the
Yes.
commercial development that they want, they need the density of the people to support it.
Correct.
That's what's selling it. That'll sell it.
And that's the thing too, I think people don't fully understand the concept of density when we talk about density. It means we want more people, and it's just using the space more wisely. That's the way I understand it. Yeah, we want to get people in here, and there'll be different types of people living here, residing here, doing businesses, providing services here. But that doesn't mean we want to add a gazillion people to the community. We're smartly doing it for what's inevitably coming, right? I mean,
Right.
By locating it here, it keeps the rest of the area, the woodsy effect that everybody wants. That's the way to sell
Yeah.
it. The 1% factor is a big selling point.
yeah, the way you put that,
When I
what he
started
says,
telling
when
people
it's
that
1% of the
this is 1% of
land.
the land area, I said, and we're not touching anything else, we're locating everybody in one place, and we're calling it a downtown. Oh.
Right. It preserves the rest of your town's land, so
Yeah.
it can remain forested in
Right.
that same.
So if you redo that rendering, just knocking down a couple to 2 stories, then what's the next thing?
Well, okay, next steps. This is.
Well, are we ready to move, are we done with you want to move on to next steps? Because we
I-
got other things
I
in
think
next
so,
steps,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think we've got the renderings and
Yeah.
what
The comments,
Patrick is planning with.
Okay, so I got enough notes for that one then. Okay, so number 8 is report on the master planning activities and outcomes for an updated presentation, but we can cover that because somebody will need to do something with that and get that on your next board agenda if you can talk to the clerk. And then, but the next steps including recommendations for those pictures, and then whatever about redistricting, zoning, and then some parking improvements, because I had already talked to Cody about those other things, but let's follow through with what Patrick said, and then we can go on to the rest of it.
Well, yeah, as far as next steps, if I understand the calendar right, didn't mean to jump too far ahead here, is that the goal is May 1st. It's going to make it, or is on the agenda already for the May 1st meeting. So having the report complete, as well as a short presentation ready to go for that May 1st meeting. That's the date we're working backwards from. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
I believe so.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what I think, here's the important things I think that should go into the report. And we talked about this back in January, but I know it's been some time. But I think it's not long. People don't read long reports. We all learned that for sure. Community engagement and what people wanted to see in the process, so to remind people of how we got to where we got to. That's important. And then on the flip side of that, documenting some of the that growth is inevitable. Looking back at how the town has grown over the past 10 years, what the projections are in the future, and then looking at some of the market analysis work that was done about who is likely to buy in the next 25 years, or at least the next 5 to 10 years. So taking the engagement work, market findings, and marrying those two things together, that's how we ended up at needing a 25-year vision. And then after we have that kind of basis of findings documented, then we'll move into the master plan itself, these three renderings, which is the revision we just talked about, and then most importantly, sequencing, phasing, written recommendations on next steps. So talking about the RFP process and how crucially important it is to talk about how the developers will be expected to pay for the infrastructure and not the town. And we'll recommend, and Diana and I, we were talking about this, we're gonna try and look at certain parcels and sizes of projects and come up with a recommendation for what the first RFP should be.
Okay.
And I mean, what's down the line, but like, what should that very first one be? And we have kind of I have a game plan for that. And then coding recommendations of putting it in one district and moving forward with a form-based code of some kind. So that's what that kind of short report will contain. Any questions? We're going to talk about that, maybe the first RFP that we were contemplating.
Mm-hmm, okay.
That would be this one here. Pull it up. Okay. Can everyone see this? It's the master plan. It's really cropped in here. I'm gonna outline it. The first, and we talked with Mark Lake about this too. The first project needs to be small enough so that it's bite-sized, right? It's digestible, both from the developer standpoint and from the community standpoint. Essentially would be this. It has 5 single-family homes. You could have 5, 6, 7, 8 cottage courts, and maybe just not 3-story, but 2-story walk-up apartments on the corner here. Because in this maybe 300-foot stretch of road, you would have 3 different housing typologies, and this could be maybe this is only 20 to 25 units. It's not very much, and it would be pretty highly visible. So I think this would be a great first project, and small enough that you could, if you really knock this one out of the park, it would set the tone and make the rest of the projects easier. And from there, you would leave it as kind of a dead end, and then you would move this way. This
That
project
makes
is its
sense.
own fair, but this seems like a good first project. It has a cottage court, it has a single family, it has some apartments. So it's a good range of housing types.
And I was thinking about this also, that as this development starts and Tiffany sells a lot of those units, that the developers will be very, maybe just pounding at the doors to get started, because we can pre-sell some of those units and put that out there, that these things are being developed and they're sold before they're even complete, which is my hope. They're being sold even before they're completed, which would initiate the additional development, as you pointed out, Patrick, going further south. And the closer we get to that community center, that proposed community center, getting the town on board, saying, look at what's going on here, this is gonna be, this is happening, and it's being done with a vision in mind.
I think that's a great way to bring in that community center, because there's ways of funding that through the state and federal government with grants, and that if you work with them closely on what you want to do, and you have to be careful of what you call it, so I think that's a great way to bring it in and get that community center in here as well, because then the sport courts could go in and the parking over there. But the parking over at the other end is gonna be important too, otherwise they're gonna wanna start scooping up land just for a parking lot, and how do you avoid something like that?
Well,
It's the angled parking, I think we gotta get, it has to.
by the other end, what do you mean, at the town center?
At Timberline, yeah, by the gazebo
The new
and the park.
entrance. The new entrance.
The new entrance or the old entrance? I'm confused.
Between the two eventually, but right now you have a town square with a splash pad and a
Yeah.
band shell. We need parking around that. And
What
that
is
needs to
the
be addressed.
What is the proposed traffic route for market days that is on the agenda for the next
Who
meeting?
knows, they put that on there, Tom wanted that on there. It came out of the last town board meeting I was sick at, but,
Well, he's got the proposed public parking right there, right, yes,
Right.
exactly. So that would address the parking issue for this.
right, but currently they need parking. Right now, they need parking. That's what they keep saying, and that's why he wanted it on the agenda, Diana.
Tom
So there's
thinks
something,
it's
there's
parking.
something like one-way traffic. Originally, we talked about one-way traffic in those speed bumps, and that there needs to be angled parking to allow for more, so people don't have so far to walk for the market, and they don't have so far to
Right.
walk for a concert or to the splash
Well, I
pad.
guess we're just gonna have to see what
Yeah.
they wanna do. There's nothing we can do about what they wanna do right now.
You could give some recommendations.
I would give one recommendation. The last thing they need to do is build a surface parking lot. That would be the worst thing they could do next. But what they should do in the short term is take this two-way street, and I'll put this in the report, convert it to one-way, which in the long term, it would be one-way.
Yep.
But even if
Yes.
that doesn't, even if you don't get that connection here, it's parallel parking on both sides now.
Right.
And you would switch one side to angled parking.
Yes.
And you would double the number of spaces at least on one side. So you might get an additional 10 spaces.
And if you
So
put the
there's
angle
something-
parking on the south side,
It's
then
already
you've maxed
there.
it. Well, you maxed it, no.
We have angled
On that
parking
street?
on the next street over
No, no,
by the number
I'm not talking,
one.
I'm talking on the one you just
Between the
outlined.
splash pad.
You
Right,
put it
right.
on the west side against, or on the south side against the park.
Oh,
And it
yeah,
says-
yeah.
Because you can maximize, there's no driveways.
Right, I thought you meant
You're
the other road
maximizing the
south
parking.
of that,
It
right.
says south of,
That
or
whole
south.
block can be angle parking.
Yeah, because it's one way and that's the way they pull in
Yeah,
and
and
back
there's-
out. And then that way around that portion of it, when you go to the other side, I thought you meant when you said south side of the square, but on both sides then you've got angled
Right.
parking. And then you had the conversation with, Carly that you said went very, very well about some of the things that they could head off when it comes to farmer market days. You know, so
Right.
that's like having the vendors that can do it park at the church, which they've agreed to, and then they leave their wagons over there so they're not taking up prime parking spaces. Which is, you know, they've got 60 or so vendors on any given Good Friday, that if they leave their wagons or their trailers or what have you, right where they are, that takes up valuable space.
Great. Okay. Well, those are my, that's what I'm thinking for this report, and I guess from a timing standpoint, my goal would be to get you, I know it's a quick turnaround, but I know how important it is to get on the May 1st meeting, to have that ready for you to review the end of next week. So you could quickly turn around, make comments, and I can incorporate them before the 1st. So that would be Friday, April 25th.
Good Friday? Is that Good
No.
Friday?
No,
Good
this
Friday
is-
is this week.
Oh, yeah. There it is. So the 25th?
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 11 days from now.
That would be good.
What time are you proposing? I can get it on your agenda.
I don't know what time works for you.
Are you,
On the 25th, I don't know if I'm available at all, but
Tiffany, would you be available that day?
Yes, I'm available.
what time do you guys want on there?
I don't know, 10 o'clock works for me, so I
So-
don't know if it works for anybody else. Would there be a better time for you that day, if you could,
that would be the best time.
10?
Yeah,
That is excellent for me too.
because I know I'm going down to my parents for their 50th, but I don't know what time I'm leaving yet. So
So 10 a.m. So that would be the changed renderings, and the report.
Yep, be a drafted report so that internally you all could review it and make comments, ideally, you know, by maybe Tuesday, so I could quickly incorporate them the following week.
Okay.
Does that sound like a a game plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then on that Friday, next Friday, we could talk about that presentation the first two. Sure, hitting the right notes.
Would you be coming to that one or not?
I guess I would prefer to do it over Zoom.
Okay,
But
That's
if
fine.
it's- Yeah,
I think that's just fine.
that's fine.
okay.
They're getting used to it.
And I just so I'm clear on who would be attending that meeting?
Which one, May 1st?
May 1st, yeah.
I would, but I wouldn't be in any capacity to be there, but I would be able to possibly speak if they allow me to, or call on me, or whatever they're gonna do, I don't know. But would you be there?
I'll be in Indianapolis that week.
And I don't know. I'm still in flux with my wife.
Tiffany?
I mean, if I'm here,
I have it
I'll
on
be
my
here.
calendar in pen.
All right.
I would be willing to be there as well, but I think it's probably a good thing for me to step back for, you'll be fine. You seem to want to
Why not?
continue, and
Yeah.
I don't know in what capacity that I would even be recognized to
Well, I
speak.
will be there for sure.
Oh, yeah, I will be
But I
there
don't,
too.
like I said, I don't know, unless, Tiffany, if you need assistance with giving you documents or something, I would, whatever.
And again, the documents that Lexi has, apparently, I don't know why. She has the same set of documents we all had, all of them, so I don't know why they wouldn't be on her drive. You still have access to the Dropbox and all of those other things we did. I kept all of my copies, so, I mean, I was, everybody has what they need, so.
Well, and then when we go next Friday, Patrick will guide us as far as what we'll need for that May 1. So I don't know of anything
Right.
other than that. And all of the board members basically came to our thing at the brewery, so
Yeah, yep.
they're
They're all there.
aware.
Or the session, because one wasn't there.
Nope, they were all there. Gabriel,
Tom was there?
No, Tom wasn't at the brewery.
didn't he come?
No.
Oh, okay.
He told me
No.
that he.
He wasn't gonna come, that's
he's
right.
working.
All the other four were there, yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause Cheryl came in.
but Tom was here at the Focus.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The quorum came
So
in.
they're all basically aware of what's going on. This would just basically be the going forward process and RFP is critical as far as what you said, how
Well,
the
and I think that's
developers
an excellent choice,
and
for a first
the
one.
location.
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
absolutely. It
See,
fills in a gap. And
You know-
it starts the greenway going.
Yep,
Mhm.
exactly. Do we, I guess, with regard to the obstacles that we are going to be facing, is that another thing that we should be addressing at that time? For instance, DOT, the land swap with one of the property owners to get that entrance. Are these additional things that you'll have that in your report too?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I always prefer the term sequencing to phasing, because phasing implies,
I like that
Um,
too.
Going forward.
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, I like
sequencing is
that.
You can't
Movement.
disable
Okay.
that, which I think is more accurate.
I think that's a great way to verbalize it to people. You
I
gotta
wrote
think of
that
the.
down, but I didn't quite understand what that meant.
Yeah, it's like the sequence of events.
Right.
This
then
will
the
happen,
phasing.
then this. It's a more acceptable way of saying phasing.
Timeline, Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's like roadblocks in their minds that.
Well, and like I know, thinking back to SWOT analysis and stuff like that, I know we have to identify those potential roadblocks, the DOT and stuff like that. I think we have to be cautious on our wording.
With everything.
Well, yes, with everything, but
So that
I don't
we
want certain
Don't give them an
people to
opportunity
be-
to grab something we said, and that's
And-
why you can't do it.
and let's just cancel this
Shut it
whole
down.
thing because
Yeah.
this is gonna be too much.
I hear you.
So like we have to identify it, but
Not
really,
make it-
really try to like roll over
We
it.
just
like, don't-
identify it,
yeah,
period.
yeah.
You don't go into it. Just identify it.
Right.
Isn't it terrible the way you have to
So,
walk through fire?
The zoning code and form-based code are you also going to be addressing that in the report?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, at least the recommendations around it, won't be like writing it, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we did have some original when we did that initial one, and then we did that change in January. That, you know, now that the non-use form-based, form-based non-use controls were all unified. So now it's going forward, once you do the districting, you can unify the, I didn't mean to interrupt you guys.
No, go ahead. I'm
Oh,
listening.
Oh,
I'm multitasking. With regard to explanation of why the zoning code is so important and critical, is that another thing that you would be addressing?
Yes, that's an important point, why it's important. And for your all's knowledge, I would also like to do a dry run of the presentation next Friday, that you have to a friendly audience, and you tell me what you think I should change.
Okay.
But the reason that the common ground, I really was trying to listen to what they were saying and what their concerns were, so that we can pivot and tell this narrative in a way that addresses their concerns. Their concerns were, they don't, even the people that did not like the Rome Town Center, this is interesting, is that they didn't like the way that it's kind of haphazardly come together. No comment on that, just, that pieces
haphazard
have been
come
sold off, and
together.
it is where it is. So
The current.
we
Oh.
talked about how you're not gonna, that will continue, if you don't change,
Yeah.
the same thing will keep happening. So that's why it's important.
And-
If you don't update the zoning, you're gonna keep getting the same kind of development, which is not, people recognize it's not what they want, so.
And quite frankly, that happened in years past. It hasn't even happened in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And we're trying to round it up and bring it all together for one.
I think pointing out the fact that the integration of the existing
Yes.
industries and businesses there is seamless with regard to this new plan. You know what, and I even wonder if inviting the gentleman from Permar, Doug, to that May 1st
Oh, that'd
meeting.
be great.
Because he would, he's supportive and he's happy with the development and what's going on there and how he doesn't feel threatened by it. And maybe he would be a good person to be there if he wanted to make any comments or evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
See if he's.
That's amazing. That's an amazing idea. Is there a way we can make that happen?
I don't know. We can, I guess we can ask him. I don't think
Ask
he
him.
would be opposed to it. Asking is always helpful.
Yeah. Let's ask him and see what he says. I really,
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be great.
Because he would be considered a convert. Wrong word. Slowly came to understanding the vision for growth over the next 25 years, and it's beyond him and his company. And he was that worded?
His challenge is getting his boss to understand it.
She's getting there, he's told me. That's what he told me.
Yeah, I'm just looking, he's supposed to be sending me an email because he wants me to get together with her when she comes in next time.
Okay.
I don't have anything from him yet, so.
Can I?
Anything else?
Can I get your overall impression, and I promised someone I would email them today with regard to what the incoming board's attitude is towards this development.
Yeah, in a sentence or two? Who's the audience?
He is a member of Tri-Lakes Management, the Board of Directors for Lake Arrowhead Association.
Oh, Tom.
I didn't.
Who are you giving this to? Speak up, so, the rest of us aren't sitting, well,
Oh,
then
then
I'm.
never
I
mind.
guessed.
Never mind, Patrick.
I guess
don't-
that she
I
doesn't
don't
want
under-
to
I
divulge
don't
who it
need
is,
to know.
so.
I just asked the question,
Oh,
what
all
the
right,
incoming board's
What was
attitude-
his perception?
What
Yes.
is your perception of the incoming board's support or
Yeah.
lack thereof in this entire presentation and plan.
The town, here's, I guess what I'll say, the town board, the incoming town board wants to study the recommendations further, and they want to make sure that whatever growth occurs, the town is prepared for it, both financially and from an infrastructure standpoint, and they would like to be cautious about moving forward. If I'm using their words, they were not opposed, they were not for, they just think that should be a little more further study before moving forward.
Okay, well, we know what study means in this town,
Mm-hmm.
based upon the other aspects of our water quality, that this could take another 25 years, so, okay, that kind of answers my question.
It's a fair question. That's a good question.
It's a good,
fair
yeah.
question.
But, that's why we're gonna recommend doing that 20-unit RFP first. Because they should not have, I don't think they would oppose that. I think that'd be a great place to start, there's no big impacts to the town, the town is not paying for the road, the town is not paying for the infrastructure, the developer would be, and it would be 3 or 4 acres of land. And the town would actually generate money because they'd be selling off the land, so.
Yes.
That would then
I
in
don't-
turn pay for the infrastructure and caring for it.
And the tax base that's going to be created from it too as well.
Right. So I also, because this is such a huge process, it's a 25-year plan, it's a big area, it's a big vision for the town. That's why I'm gonna wrap up the presentation with this. Well, if, I'm gonna compliment them and say, yeah, it's right to be careful, because I know you're supposed to be good stewards of the town's resources. So let's just start with the bite size. Let's just start with a few acres, 15 to 20 units, and just see what that looks like. And I think if that goes well, then it can help with the rest of it. But I think it's a good kind of compromise for step one,
Okay, I think so.
if you agree or disagree. But
Yep. No, I think it's, yeah.
Okay.
okay. Good. That's a good question.
Mhm.
It's an important question.
Yeah.
All right, well, I don't think I have any other questions. I can't think of any.
No, I'm good.
So you have anything else for us then, or you think you're all set?
I think I'm all set. I will send a Zoom invite 10 a.m. next Friday.
All right, well, thank you for everything, Patrick. It's really been a pleasure working with you. So I hope moving forward you can keep this momentum going.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lori, for everything. It's been great to work with you and the whole team here. So all your hard work is definitely gone unnoticed. So really appreciate it.
Well,
All right,
thank you again, and we'll see you next Friday.
See you next Friday.
All righty,
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
bye.
bye. Have a wonderful week. Well, it's
Great
Easter
show.
week. Have a beautiful,
Good weekend.
yeah. All righty, thank you. Oh, do we still have Tiffany or did we lose her?
We lost her because he ended the meeting.
Oh, all
When he
right.
shuts down.
Bye,
that's
Tiff.
it.
Well, I'll go ahead and just type up the meeting minutes. You guys can add to it what you want. Who do you want to turn the secretarial duties over to?
How about Taylor?
We can't ask for her assistance with this.
How about, is there another person in the office that can come and assist? No?
Mm-mm. Nope, they made that pretty clear. So, how about we just, we're gonna just adjourn the meeting at 11, what is that?
37.
37?
Should I go tell
Well, that's
Taylor
what
to-
my clock
Yep.
says.